When someone robs you, you expect a broken lock, shattered glass, maybe even a ski mask. What you don't expect is a glass of wine, soft lighting, and your own mother saying, "Sweetheart, don't make this a big deal." That's what she told me the night I asked about the $150,000. The fund, my fund, the one my grandparents built piece by piece across decades, meant to send me to business school. To give me leverage in a world that demands letters after your name before it listens to your voice. My dad didn't say much, just cleared his throat, glanced down at his untouched plate, and said, "You'll be fine, Ethan. You've always been smart. Loans are manageable. Everyone does it. It wasn't just money they took. It was trust. It was years of planning. It was the certainty that hard work would be honored." Instead, they handed that future, the one I fought for, to Michael, my younger brother, the one who dropped out of 3 majors, then decided he wanted to inspire children as a private school administrator. And somehow, that meant he and his fiancée, Danielle, needed a dream home right now. Apparently, my MBA could wait, but their vaulted ceilings and marble countertops? Urgent. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I just sat there while my mother went on about housing prices and how Michael and Danielle deserved a fresh start. "They're not like you, honey," she said, buttering a dinner roll. "They need help." I was quiet. I'd learned long ago that outrage got me labeled too serious or too dramatic. I'd grown up on scraps of attention. Applause for A-pluses that barely echoed, while Michael's finger paintings got fridge real estate. When I got promoted last year, they responded with, "Of course. You've always been the achiever." When Michael got his job at a Montessori school, they threw a backyard party. Balloons, cake speeches. The same parents who taught me frugality as a virtue had just moved my inheritance into someone else's mortgage and told me I should be grateful for it. I left that night with my jaw tight, fists clenched in the pockets of my coat. I was done waiting to be seen. They thought I would take it, like always. That I'd get quiet, get back to work, and get over it. But this time, I had other plans. The next morning, I didn't go to the gym. I didn't scroll social. I didn't even make coffee. I opened my laptop, typed a single line into an email, and sent it to someone I trusted more than my own parents. Miss Carter, my firm's senior director and the sharpest mind in a room full of professionals who worship data like gospel. Subject: quick meeting this morning. Need legal guidance on something personal. 10 minutes later, her assistant replied, "Come in at 9. We'll make time." I barely remembered the elevator ride to the 28th floor. When I stepped into her office, Miss Carter was standing by the window, coffee in hand, looking out at the skyline like it was a chessboard. She didn't smile. She didn't ask how I was. She just motioned for me to sit. "Talk," she said. So I did. From start to finish, my grandparents, the education fund, my parents' role as temporary custodians, the sudden disappearance of the money, and the bland justification that it had been reallocated to help Michael and Danielle get a head start. She listened like a surgeon, no reaction, just calculation. When I finished, she didn't speak right away. Then, finally, "That's not just unethical," she said. "It's theft, if you can prove it." "I don't have access to the transfers," I admitted. "I was never on the account. They were managing it for me." Miss Carter opened her drawer, slid a business card across the desk. "Rachel Sinclair, forensic audit specialist. Also my sister. She'll find what you need," she added. "And if this becomes legal, which it should, you'll need more than screenshots and family drama. You'll need numbers, motives, a pattern, a pause." "And Ethan," she said, leaning forward, "don't hesitate. They're counting on your silence." That night, I called Aunt Rachel. She'd always been the outlier, my father's cousin, technically, but she'd never played by the family script. She had opinions, money, and absolutely no tolerance for nonsense. She was the one who'd told me at 13, "Smart boys grow spines. Don't become your parents' emotional ATM." I hadn't spoken to her in a year, but she picked up on the second ring. "Ethan," she said, "to what do I owe the pleasure?" "I need your help," I replied, "and I'm done being quiet." We met at a coffee shop downtown. No drama, no hugs, just data. I laid out everything: my grandparents' will, the account setup, the promise that the fund would be untouched until I began grad school. Then I told her what happened, how it was gone, quietly siphoned, signed away like it was a family favor. She didn't blink. "They always did baby that boy," she muttered, sipping her Americano. "But this, This is criminal. I nodded. I want it back. She reached into her bag and pulled out a sleek, black folder. Then, let's go get it. Over the next 2 weeks, Rachel worked like a machine. She got a subpoena through a lawyer she'd worked with on corporate embezzlement cases. Within 5 business days, we had bank statements, transfer logs, wire records, and just like that, the truth glowed in numbers. $150,000 drained in 3 structured chunks, memo lines, family housing support, home investment seed, and, most infuriating, gift from Ethan. They had actually written that. A gift. For me, I stared at the paper like it had spat in my face. Rachel leaned back in her chair, arms crossed. We've got 'em. Not just on civil grounds, but misrepresentation of inheritance intent. If your grandparents will specify that money was for education, your parents broke fiduciary trust. And Michael? I asked. She snorted. Oh, he's complicit. Danielle, too. Once we traced the money into their mortgage documents, this isn't just a family feud, it's a fraud case. I exhaled. For the first time in days, I felt something cold and sharp. Not sadness, not fury, just precision. I didn't go home that week. I didn't return their calls. I let the silence work. And I waited for the moment they realized I wasn't the boy who nodded through betrayals anymore. I was the man who kept receipts. It didn't take long for them to notice something had shifted. Maybe it was the sudden drop in my usual Sunday check-ins. Or the silence when they sent me blurry photos of Michael and Danielle posing in front of their new front porch with the caption, "Home Sweet Home." Or maybe it was the quiet legal notice they received 2 days later with Wilson and Sinclair LLP at the top and an elegantly worded summary of the case against them. Whatever it was, it finally made the phone ring. The number was familiar. I didn't answer. Then came the texts. Dad, Ethan, this is getting out of hand. Let's talk like adults. Mom, honey, lawsuits hurt families. Can we just fix this between us? Michael, bro, you're seriously suing over tuition money? It's just debt, man. I ignored them all. Until the blocked number showed up, and I made the mistake of picking up. Ethan, her voice, my mother's, was sweetened with years of practiced guilt. I didn't know we were speaking, I replied coolly. We're trying to avoid speaking to a judge, she said. There's no need for this to become public. Should have thought of that before you made your theft public by signing my name onto a fake gift. She sighed like I was being childish. We didn't steal Ethan. We just shifted priorities. Michael and Danielle needed a hand. That's what families do. No, I said. Families protect each other's futures. You made sure mine was sold off for shiplap and quartz countertops. She tried again. We can return some of it? I cut her off. Some? It's complicated. No, it's really not. You took money that wasn't yours. Money intended for one thing, my education. You gave it away without consent, without discussion, and now you're hoping I'll settle for scraps. Think of your brother, she said sharply. He's building a family. This house is stability. Don't you want that for him? I wanted graduate school. You didn't seem to care about that. Silence. Then her voice returned, more defensive now. You've always been self-sufficient. Michael, he struggles. He's not like you. And whose fault is that? The line went quiet. She finally muttered, You're really going through with this? Yes, I said. And I won't feel guilty about it. Even if it ruins your family? I laughed. Low. Bitter. If this ruins our family, it wasn't a family to begin with. Then I hung up. The next message didn't come from them. It came from Danielle. Danielle, I didn't know the money was yours. Please don't drag us into this. This is between you and your parents. I stared at that line for a while. She knew. Maybe not at first, maybe not the exact amount or the paper trail, but she knew what kind of people my parents were. She knew what it looked like when someone got steamrolled for someone else's comfort. She stayed anyway. She signed the mortgage papers. She moved in. And now she wanted to play innocent. I forwarded the message to Aunt Rachel. She added it to the file under passive complicity. Things unraveled faster than even I expected. Rachel's team dug deeper. Turns out, the fund wasn't the only thing my parents had touched. In the final year of my grandmother's life, a time when she was barely lucid, they had begun draining small amounts from her personal accounts, labeling it as caregiver reimbursements and grocery advances. They were the only ones with access. When the judge saw the early findings, she expanded the inquiry. Michael and Danielle's house purchase was placed under immediate review. The bank, now aware they were sitting on contested funds, froze the mortgage and began investigating Danielle's financial declarations. Michael didn't take it well. I heard through Rachel, who, thanks to her private investigator, now had access to more family gossip than Facebook ever could, that Michael and Danielle had a full-blown screaming match in a public cafe. "You knew that money wasn't yours!" he yelled, loud enough for 2 tables to clear. Danielle snapped back. "Your mom said it was. I didn't ask questions." Apparently, that was their final argument. He left that night. Their engagement? Canceled. Quietly. Embarrassingly. No posts. No explanations. Just a change of relationship status that most of their friends noticed within 24 hours. Meanwhile, my parents began damage control. They started leaking versions of the story to extended family, twisting it. Suddenly, I had offered the money. I'd been generous but had a change of heart. I was just bitter that Michael had a real future and I didn't. One aunt called me crying, asking why I was attacking my poor mother. I sent her the legal documents. No reply. Then, for the first time in months, I visited my grandparents' old home, the one my parents had inherited. The one they might soon lose. It looked smaller than I remembered. I didn't go inside. I just stood on the sidewalk and reminded myself, this was never mine to protect. My future was. And I'm finally doing that. Court dates have a way of hollowing out the air around you. You sit in your suit, listening to voices describe your life like it's a spreadsheet. Line items of betrayal, paragraphs of paperwork, words like misappropriation, negligence, breach of fiduciary duty. I sat at the plaintiff's table, jaw set, not looking toward the people who raised me. Not even once. My mother wore black, dramatic. Her posture sagged, eyes red. My father stared straight ahead, lips thin, hands folded, like he could press this all away with enough pressure. Across from me sat Michael, arms crossed tightly, his tie too loose, his jaw clenched like it was holding in an entire life of excuses. Danielle wasn't there. I wasn't surprised. She was smart enough to jump ship once it started taking on legal water. The case wasn't dramatic. It didn't need to be. We had evidence, digital trails, emails, signed transfers, even Danielle's texts. Aunt Rachel's forensic report stacked like bricks in front of the judge. Each page another crack in my parents' defense. Miss Carter's legal team presented it with surgical calm. The defense had nothing but guilt dressed up as parental love. "He never said we couldn't use the money," my mother said, voice trembling. "It was never yours to interpret," the judge snapped back. Then came the line that made something inside me breathe for the first time in months. "You weren't trusted with this money to decide. You were entrusted to protect it, and you failed." My father shifted uncomfortably. My mother wiped her nose. Michael avoided eye contact. I just sat still. When the verdict came, I didn't flinch. They were found fully liable. They were ordered to pay back the full $150,000, plus legal penalties, plus an audit of my grandmother's estate. If they couldn't cover it, assets would be liquidated. The judge didn't even pause before declaring their house eligible for seizure. The same house they'd used as leverage to seem respectable. Gone. My mother broke down in her chair. My father's face tightened but didn't move. And me? I exhaled, not in victory, in relief. 2 months later, the house went on the market. The one my parents inherited from my grandparents, full of old photos, antique furniture, and hollow declarations of family, was stripped down and listed by a firm that didn't even spell their last name right on the sign. They tried to borrow money from family. No one offered. Most were polite about it. Others weren't. Apparently, the story had spread further than they thought. One of my mother's old friends emailed me, "She's devastated, Ethan. But if I'm being honest, she made her bed." I didn't reply. Michael lost his job. Word had gotten around the school board. A teacher's aide tied to inheritance theft, fraudulent mortgage activity, and a public lawsuit. It didn't exactly scream positive role model. I heard he tried to claim he didn't know. But schools don't care about technical guilt. They care about headlines. His name disappeared from the staff page overnight. Danielle, to her credit, stayed quiet. I later found out she had returned the engagement ring and moved back in with her sister. She never contacted me again. Smart move. 3 months later, I received my MBA acceptance letter. Top-tier program. Scholarship for leadership and extraordinary personal resilience. I didn't laugh. I didn't cry. I just stared at the line until the screen blurred. The next day, Miss Carter called me into her office. I heard the news, she said, smiling for the first time in months. We'd like to offer you an executive development track after you graduate. Salary package attached. I opened the envelope. 6 figures. International rotation, full, trust full, independence. I looked up. You're sure? She gave me the same look she gave junior associates when they asked if Toner needed a signature. Ethan, she said, you held the line. You didn't just protect your name, you proved it deserved to be on the door someday. I used part of the settlement money, the funds they were legally forced to repay, to put a down payment on a new apartment. Nothing flashy, just high up, quiet, clean. A balcony overlooking the city. Somewhere I could breathe. I moved in on a Sunday morning, box by box, book by book. With every step up those stairs, I felt the weight of their decisions stay behind me. I changed my number that night, blocked every one of them. No calls, no emails, no more chances to reframe history. Sunday mornings used to feel like unfinished assignments, a list of things I should be doing to prove I belonged. The grind, the guilt, the background noise of never being enough unless someone else said so. Now, they're mine. I sit on the balcony of my new apartment, coffee in hand, legs up, staring at a city that finally feels earned. Not gifted, not inherited, not permitted. Earned. Below, the park is waking up. Kids on bikes. Dogs pulling their leashes like they've got somewhere urgent to be. Runners tracing the same route I once used to clear my head. But I don't run anymore. I don't need to. The last time I heard from my parents was a certified letter. No apology, just an appeal. They were appealing the judge's decision to liquidate the remaining funds of my grandmother's estate. The house was already sold. But now they were trying to stop the state from investigating the last accounts tied to her name. They weren't concerned about legacy. They were terrified of exposure. My lawyer handled it. I didn't even read the full filing. Just signed the retainer renewal and returned to my espresso. Let them spend whatever they have left on defense attorneys and PR whisperers. Me? I'm done spending emotions on people who only see me when I'm useful. I sometimes hear updates from old neighbors, distant cousins. One of my grandmother's bridge partners. Your father's a ghost, one of them said. He just sits at that same coffee shop, stares out the window, doesn't talk. My mother? Less subtle. She's made rounds, church groups, old friends, anyone who'll listen. But the tone has changed. People don't nod sympathetically anymore. They don't offer casseroles and conspiratorial whispers about how hard it is to raise 2 boys. They say things like, but wasn't that Ethan's fund? Or worse, didn't they lie to the court? Respect doesn't rebuild easily once you've traded it for convenience. Michael hasn't spoken to me since the ruling. He tried to blame Danielle, then the lawyers, then everyone twisting the story. But in the end, the silence between us was always going to grow into a wall. He was the golden child, the one they wrapped in bubble wrap while I walked barefoot through broken glass. And when the bubble popped, there was no one left to carry him. I wonder if he's still blaming everyone but himself. Then I stopped wondering. He's not my responsibility anymore. 3 weeks ago, I received an email that felt more surreal than the court ruling or the scholarship or even the executive offer. It was from a foundation, one that had been reviewing my application for a mentorship initiative, not for my benefit, but for others. They asked if I'd be willing to mentor first-gen college students navigating family pressure and financial betrayal. Apparently, someone on the board had read the public record of my case and then read my MBA admission essay, the one that ended with, when your foundation is shaken, you learn to build your own, brick by brick, bound by your own values. And that's a future no one can take. They offered me a spot. I accepted. I'm not interested in revenge anymore. I used to be. In the beginning, I wanted them to feel what I felt, helpless, erased, betrayed by people who should have protected me. But now I want distance and peace and a life that doesn't require suffering to be taken seriously. So I let the legal team finish what they started. I let Aunt Rachel pop into my inbox every now and then with one-line updates. Their appeal was denied. House fully cleared. Final payment deposited. Grandma would be proud. She'd also say, I told you so. And then she adds, so, when are you starting the real estate empire? We laugh about that. Because why not? The future's open again. And this time, I'm not sharing it with people who called theft family. People like to say forgiveness is freeing, maybe. But I found more peace and detachment. No more wondering what they think of me. No more trying to make them proud. No more pretending their approval ever meant more than a transaction. They lost me long before the money. The fun just made it official. I take one last sip of coffee and open my laptop. My MBA classes start in a week. My name is on the student portal. My scholarship is confirmed. And my new job's onboarding packet just arrived in my inbox. There's a welcome message from the global division president. He ends it with, "We're excited to see what you build next. So am I." Because this time, the foundation's mine, and it's built to last.